So as I said, we're gonna be, giving you all the foundational skills and the basic understandings of all of these different things that you need before you actually go and take any type of pen testing course, whether it be, certified ethical hacker, pen test plus, even some of the more advanced stuff like threat hunting and incident response. These foundational skills are something that that you're going to need coming into those courses to get the most out of those courses or training, or even if you're studying on your own. These skills are going to be very, very important to you. And we're going to go through this in kind of like a series format. And we're going to start off with foundational skills because honestly, if you don't have these foundational skills as far as the operating systems, how networks work and stuff like that, a lot of the other stuff as far as scanning and discovery, vulnerability identification, exploitation, it's just not going to make a lot of sense to you, or it's going to seem like some type of magic. So today we're going to, be in foundational, and we're going to start off with Linux. So we will go into Linux, and you're going to be learning about these Linux commands. Now, each series will probably be a couple of these commands, or each video will be a couple of these commands. So just look for it in like 5 to 10 minute blocks, whereby, after about 3 videos, we will cover all these commands, and then you'll be able to move on to the Windows commands next. And again, these are foundational things. So, if you were to come and take a ethical hacking course from me, it would definitely help things go faster and a lot more smoother, and you would learn a lot more if you had these foundational things under your belt before we actually get started. And where this actually came from is just a culmination of years of me just collecting information myself as far as students, what they're lacking, what they don't have coming into it. And even a lot of times what the students say, I wish I'd known this, or I wish I'd known more of that before I took the course. So that's where I got this from, and that's where we're coming at it from. So from that, we're going to move right in, get right into the lab environment, and get started with it. Now, starting out here, I have this data set that I'm going to have you work with. You can look in the description to get this data set. This little example scan data set, we're going to use it throughout the fundamentals of the command line little session here. This is just so that you can understand how to utilize it without worrying about going after a bunch of different data sources and things like that. And one of the first things that we're going to actually look at recording here, or look at going through, will be simply the cat command. We'll also look at more and show you how to utilize that, just so that you have that fundamental understanding. And we will, I think, kick that off with more. So the first thing we're going to do is let's just look at Etsy services with more. And you just did it by typing more /Etsy/services. Now, one little trick that we always teach to beginners in Linux is, for example, if you do more /Etsy/ser, you can tab and it auto completes it out the services. So autocomplete is something that is your friend, and you're going to definitely need to get accustomed to using that, because as we go throughout this series, especially when we get into some of the nmap and metasploit stuff later, you will see that some of these strings and these commands will be very long and drawn out. So if we enter that, what you see here is it allows you to look at the entire Etsy services file, which is just a large list of port to protocol mappings. So some of your fundamental stuff exists in this file. And as you can see, as I'm hitting enter here, it's going down line by line. If I hit space, it goes page by page. So one enter equals one line, one space equals one page. Now, another thing to keep in mind is if you hit the B key, you can go backwards in your more. So now if you look, we're at 40%. Well, if I hit B, now we're 33, now we're 28. We're actually going back a page at a time here. So you can go backwards by hitting the B key while you're inside more, and essentially go all the way back to the beginning. And then if we wanted to go forward again, we could start hitting enter or hitting space again. All right. So that's some fundamental things you need to know about more. The other, we like to call it little brother, is concatenization, or cat. We can cat the same file, but one thing you'll notice about cat is that it actually just reads all the way through to the end. Again, if that was too fast, cat/etsy/services, when you do it with cat, it actually just concatenates and reads the entire file and goes all the way to the end of it like so. You don't have like the more option where you can slowly scroll through it at your speed. It basically zips through the whole thing. Now, where that's still useful though is if you wanted to look for or grep for specific things. For example, we could say grep or filter for just FTP, right? And it would basically parse the entire thing and just show us, FTP, or where the string FTP showed up in this particular traffic or in this particular file. Another thing too is you could still pipe, and this is another little thing, instead of piping it to grep, you could actually pipe to more, and now it's almost the same as if you were looking at it with more. Not quite the same, but almost. Like for example, as you can see, we can hit enter to go through it, we can hit space to go through it, but one thing you'll notice is lacking is if you try to hit B to go backwards, you can't. So being able to go backwards and more is only applicable if you're actually reading the file or the data set directly with more. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, so that's cat and more. That's kind of some of the fundamentals, the basics that you need to know about those. Again, don't want to get into too much detail about it. One of the things I do want to do in this segment is introduce you a little bit to cut, to show you how that works. We're going to be using the downloaded data set for that. For example, let's look at that data set, which is example scan, and I'm not going to type it. I'm just going to type a few characters and hit tab. And if we read that with more, you can see that you've got all this data here. This is from a scan. Of course it's been sanitized, so it's not real results here per se. But, we can use cut to, for example, take out specific parts of this. Now, if I wanted to just see, for example, the IP address field, I could use cut to bring that out and just look at that field. Now, if we use as a separator space, then field 1 would be host, field 2 would be the IP addresses, and so forth and so on. So I could tell cut to just cut out or keep for me field 2 by doing something like the following. So if I said cat that file or do more on it, pipe it to cut, and just keep field 2 for me. Let's see what that gives us. And you see it looks a little bit messy there. It doesn't actually give us specifically what we're looking for. That's because we're making cut assume too much. All right. If we look at that data set again, we were assuming that it was going to automatically interpret the space as field 2, or the spaces as a delimiter or separator. But it didn't really do that. One way we can kind of ensure that is we could actually specify delimiter with cut. So watch this. If we say more example scan data text, and then we pipe it to cut, and we say, hey, use a delimiter of space. And the way I say space is I just simply said -D for delimiter, and then inside the quotes, I have a blank space there. So it's going to assume space means, the delimiter or the separator. Now, if I do -F2 for keep field 2, it gives us exactly what we want. So in other words, we started off by assuming that cut would just know that we mean to use space as our delimiter or separator, and it gave us kind of a messy result, not what we're looking for. But if we visibly see that, like, hey, if I look at this with more, I want this to be the field that I want to pull out, and I want cut to utilize just a single space as my delimiter, or space as my delimiter, then we have to ask, well, how do we tell it what delimiter to use? And the way we do that again is we say -D, which is for delimiter. We can do quotes, space, close quotes. That means that there's nothing in there, it's just a space. And then we say, using space as our delimiter, keep field 2, and it gives us exactly what we want. All right. So that's what I wanted you to kind of pick up from this. Now, in the next video, we're going to get into some more advanced command line operators like awk, and I'll show you some really interesting things with that, and we'll get really advanced with it. But for now, take your time, play with this, see if you can, on your own, for example, see if you can pull out field 2 and field 3 just by using cut. See if you can figure that out on your own. I'll do a follow-up video to show you the answer to that, but I want you to see if you can figure it out on your own. That is, see if you can use cut to pull out just field 2 and field 3. All right. So hope you enjoyed this video. Again, this is fundamental stuff that I think you need to know coming into any paid for professional course or anything like that deals with technical cybersecurity. So I'm putting this out here to try to get that foundational knowledge out so that everyone that wants it can get it. Thanks for watching. Feel free to comment and share as much as you can. That's how the word's going to get around. Thanks.